Let's give a round of applause for Leora's little side hustle. Marcus Hale's voice rang through the glass lobby, sharp enough to slice through the hum of conversation. A wave of mocking claps followed, slow and performative and deliberately cruel. I stood there gripping the slim folder in my hands, surrounded by people who used to pretend I didn't exist. My startup's logo flashed behind Marcus on the massive LED screen like a joke someone forgot to finish. The design was clean and understated, but in this room it looked amateur. Did she really make this in Canva? Someone whispered loudly enough for everyone to hear. Laughter rippled through the crowd like a wave. I felt heat crawl up my neck, my pulse pounding so hard I thought they might actually hear it. Marcus smiled at me then, the same smile he'd worn the day he told me I'd never survive without his company's resources and connections. Really impressive, Leora, he said smoothly, his tone dripping with false encouragement. We always knew you had creative hobbies. That was the moment it hit me with crystal clarity. He didn't just want to mock me. He wanted to bury me completely. And I made him a silent promise right then, standing in that humiliating spotlight. If he wanted to see me fail, I'd make sure he had a front row seat when I won. My name is Leora Vale. 2 years ago, I was an overworked junior strategist at Hale Brand Partners, where Marcus Hale loved taking my work, my ideas, and every ounce of credit he could scrape off my back. I'd spent countless late nights developing campaigns that he presented as his own. I'd written strategies that won major clients while he collected bonuses and praise. When I finally quit, walking into his corner office with my resignation letter, he leaned back in his expensive leather chair and laughed. Actually laughed at me. Be realistic, Leora, he'd said dismissively. People like you don't build companies, you work for people who do. That's just how the world works. He told me I'd regret leaving, that I was throwing away stability for a fantasy. He said I'd be back within 6 months, begging for my old job. I walked away with nothing but a second-hand laptop that crashed constantly and $800 in my savings account. Marcus stopped laughing eventually. He's definitely not laughing now. Because the day the deal closed, the day my company officially bought the building housing Hale Brand Partners, I didn't even bother walking inside to gloat. I just sent the keys with a simple note that said, "For the next tenant." The irony was poetic. Weeks after leaving Hale Brand Partners, I sat in my cramped apartment staring at my dwindling bank account. The numbers were terrifying. Rent was due in 5 days. My laptop battery was dying. My savings were evaporating faster than I'd anticipated. But I couldn't stop sketching ideas, couldn't stop planning. Every rejection from my time at Marcus's company fueled something fierce inside me. I worked at a corner table in a small cafe every evening, nursing a single coffee for hours while I developed my business plan. The startup idea was simple but revolutionary, a platform connecting small businesses with freelance strategists, cutting out expensive agencies like Marcus's entirely. I knew the market. I understood the pain points. I'd lived them. One evening, I was working so intensely I didn't notice someone standing beside my table. That's an interesting concept, a woman's voice said. I looked up to find a woman in her 40s, professionally dressed, watching my laptop screen with genuine interest. I'm Raina Cole, she said, extending her hand. And I think you might be onto something significant. That chance encounter changed everything. Sometimes the universe puts the right person in your path exactly when you need them most. Raina Cole was a tech investor with a reputation for finding overlooked talent. Over coffee, I explained my concept nervously, half expecting her to dismiss it like everyone else had. Instead, she listened intently, asked sharp questions, and challenged my assumptions in ways that made my ideas stronger. This could work, she said finally. But you'll need funding, mentorship, and absolute discretion. If your former employer catches wind of this too early, he'll try to crush you before you gain traction. She offered me seed funding and strategic guidance with one firm condition. We keep everything quiet until launch. No social media announcements, no early press, nothing that would alert Marcus to what I was building. He underestimated you once, Raina said. Let's make sure he keeps underestimating you until it's too late for him to do anything about it. I accepted immediately, my hands shaking as I signed the partnership agreement. For the first time since leaving Hale Brand Partners, I felt something other than fear and desperation. I felt hope. Real, tangible hope that maybe I could actually pull this off. My journey was truly beginning, and Marcus had no idea what was coming. He dismissed me as irrelevant. That dismissal would become his biggest mistake. The next 3 months were brutal. I rented a tiny office space that was really just a converted storage room, and I practically lived there. I coded until my eyes burned. I designed interfaces until my vision blurred. I tested prototypes that failed spectacularly, then learned from every failure and tried again. Sleep became optional. Meals became whatever I could eat while working. Social life disappeared completely. Raina checked in regularly, offering advice but letting me struggle through problems myself. "You need to learn to solve these challenges independently," she'd say. "I can guide you, but I can't build this for you." Some nights I questioned everything. Was Marcus right? Was I delusional to think I could compete with established agencies? Was I wasting Raina's investment and my own time? Then I'd remember standing in that glass lobby, feeling the sting of public humiliation, and the anger would return. That anger became fuel. It pushed me through exhaustion and doubt. One evening, after my 15th attempt to fix a critical bug, the prototype finally worked properly. It wasn't perfect, but it functioned. I stared at my laptop screen, hardly believing it. My hands trembled. I'd actually built something real, something that might actually work in the market. Hope sparked again, brighter this time. Launch day arrived faster than I expected. My platform went live early on a Tuesday morning. I'd spent the previous week doing quiet outreach to small businesses, offering free trials to generate initial interest. The response was modest at first, then picked up gradually as word spread through entrepreneurial networks. But success attracted attention I hadn't anticipated. By Thursday, someone had posted about my platform on a popular business forum, and not kindly. "Another wannabe disrupting established industries," the post read. "Give it 3 months." Screenshots spread across social media. Memes emerged mocking the simple interface and bold promises. Design critics tore apart my logo and branding. Industry veterans dismissed it as naive. The public mockery stung worse than I'd expected. I watched my notifications fill with criticism and jokes, each one a small cut. Part of me wanted to shut everything down, to hide from the embarrassment. But another part of me remembered something Raina had said. "If nobody's mocking you, you're not threatening anyone." I was being mocked because I was threatening the established order. That realization shifted everything. I stopped reading the negative comments and started analyzing the legitimate criticism. What actually needed improvement? What was just noise? By Friday night, I'd identified 3 critical fixes. I worked through the weekend implementing changes. The mockery had hurt, but it had also shown me exactly what to improve. The relaunch happened quietly 2 weeks later. I'd fixed the major issues, improved the interface, and added features based on user feedback. This time, the response was different. Orders started coming in steadily. Small businesses that had tried the platform during the initial launch returned, impressed by the rapid improvements. Testimonials began appearing organically. Within a month, I had 50 active clients. Within 2 months, that number doubled. Small news outlets picked up the story. "Mystery startup disrupts traditional agency model." Business blogs analyzed my approach. Podcasts requested interviews, which I politely declined. I wasn't ready for public attention yet. I was too busy building, improving, scaling. Raina smiled when she saw the growth metrics. "You're onto something here," she said. "Keep your head down and keep building. Let the work speak louder than any marketing campaign." Meanwhile, Marcus heard about the platform through industry connections. Someone mentioned it during a client meeting at Halebrand Partners. His response, according to my former colleague who still kept in touch, was dismissive. "Another flash-in-the-pan startup," he'd scoffed. "Give it 6 months. These things always collapse." He didn't know I was behind it. My name wasn't prominently featured anywhere, and his assumption that it would fail kept him from investigating further. His arrogance was becoming my advantage. Building a team was harder than I expected. I couldn't afford top talent from established companies, but I realized I didn't want them anyway. I wanted people like me, talented individuals who'd been overlooked, dismissed, or underestimated by the corporate world. I found them in unexpected places. A brilliant developer who'd been passed over for promotions because she didn't fit the tech bro culture. A designer who'd been told his creative vision was too unconventional for mainstream agencies. a marketing strategist who'd been dismissed as too young and inexperienced despite brilliant ideas. Each person I hired had their own grudge, their own hunger to prove the doubters wrong. We bonded over shared experiences of being underestimated. Our small office became a space where weird ideas were welcomed and unconventional thinking was celebrated. During one late-night brainstorming session, we mapped out an upgrade that would completely revolutionize how businesses access strategic services. "This will make traditional agencies obsolete," my developer said, eyes bright with excitement. "Agencies like Hale-Brand Partners," my designer added with a knowing smile. Everyone in the room understood the implication. We weren't just building a business anymore. We were building something that would directly challenge the companies that had dismissed us. The energy in that room was electric. Raina introduced me to an unexpected opportunity. Marcus's company didn't own their building outright. It was held through a separate real estate investment company that was quietly struggling financially. "If you're patient and strategic," Raina said carefully, "there might be an opportunity there eventually, but you'd need to be discreet, very discreet." I started researching the real estate company, studying their holdings, debts, and financial situation. I bought small shares through shell corporations that couldn't be traced back to me. Nothing large enough to raise alarms, just enough to gain insight into their operations. The more I learned, the clearer the picture became. The real estate company was over-leveraged, dependent on a few major tenants for stability. Hale-Brand Partners was their flagship tenant, occupying the most prestigious space. If anything happened to Marcus's company, the real estate firm would face serious problems. I studied Marcus's business operations through publicly available information, industry gossip, and insights from former colleagues who'd left his company. His success was built on reputation and long-term client relationships, but underneath, the foundation was shakier than it appeared. He was arrogant, dismissive of innovation, and increasingly out of touch with market changes. Marcus continued underestimating the shifts happening in our industry, and that blindness would become his downfall. Rumors about my company started circulating more widely in industry circles. Business forums discussed the innovative approach. LinkedIn posts praised the platform's efficiency. Client testimonials highlighted the quality and affordability compared to traditional agencies. But I remained anonymous, operating through my company name without personal branding. Media requests increased, but I deflected them all. "Let the product speak for itself," I told my team. This anonymity served a strategic purpose. Marcus heard about the growing startup disrupting the agency model, but he didn't connect it to me. In his mind, I was a failed junior strategist who'd probably given up her foolish dreams by now. His assumptions kept him from recognizing the threat until it was too late. One afternoon, I learned through a former colleague that a major client had questioned Marcus during a meeting. "Why should we pay your premium rates when new platforms offer similar services at a fraction of the cost?" they'd asked. Marcus had apparently laughed it off, dismissing startups as inexperienced and unreliable. "You get what you pay for," he'd said confidently. "These platforms might be cheap, but they lack the expertise and relationships we've built over decades." His response revealed everything wrong with his thinking. He believed his reputation alone justified his prices. He didn't see that the market was changing, that clients increasingly valued results over relationships. His arrogance blinded him to reality, and that blindness was exactly what I needed. The breakthrough came 6 months after launch. One of Marcus's flagship clients, a mid-sized tech company, reached out to my platform. Their contract with Hale-Brand Partners was ending, and they wanted to explore alternatives. I personally handled their onboarding, pouring everything into delivering exceptional results. We provided strategic insights Marcus's team had never offered. We responded faster, communicated better, and charged significantly less. Within 2 months, they decided not to renew with Hale-Brand Partners. They switched to my platform permanently. The defection sent shockwaves through the industry. This wasn't a small startup or unknown business. This was a respected client Marcus had served for 5 years. Word spread quickly. If a major client trusted this new platform over established agencies, maybe others should pay attention too. My former colleague texted me. "Marcus called an emergency meeting. He's visibly shaken. He wants to know everything about the company that stole his client." I smiled reading that message. The first real blow had landed. Marcus was finally starting to understand he had a problem, but he still didn't know I was the one causing it. His panic was just beginning, and I was patient enough to let it build slowly. Revenge was sweetest when it unfolded gradually, each revelation more devastating than the last. I needed inside information about Marcus's operations, and I found an unexpected ally. One of my former colleagues at Halebrand Partners, someone who'd witnessed Marcus take credit for my work repeatedly, reached out privately. "I know what you're building," she said during a quiet coffee meeting, "and I want to help." She was tired of Marcus's treatment, his arrogance, his habit of using people and discarding them. She wasn't looking for money or a job with my company. She just wanted to see him face consequences for his behavior. She began quietly sharing information about operational weaknesses at Halebrand Partners, which clients were unhappy, which projects were struggling, which team members were considering leaving. The information was invaluable, not for sabotage but for strategic positioning. I knew exactly when to reach out to dissatisfied clients, exactly what pain points to address, exactly how to position my platform as the solution they needed. Within weeks, Halebrand Partners faced an operational crisis. 3 mid-level strategists quit simultaneously, leaving projects understaffed. A major campaign launched poorly due to rushed work and lack of oversight. Client complaints increased. Marcus had no idea who was behind the problems. He blamed bad luck, difficult clients, disloyal employees. He never suspected someone was strategically exploiting every weakness in his business model. My former colleague sent me updates regularly. "He's spiraling," she reported. "Paranoid, angry, lashing out at everyone. It's actually sad to watch." I didn't feel sad. I felt satisfied. This was justice. The investor panic started quietly but spread quickly. Halebrand Partners was partially funded by venture capital, and those investors expected consistent growth and stability. When major clients started leaving and operational problems mounted, investors began asking uncomfortable questions. Conference calls became tense. Financial projections no longer matched reality. Marcus tried maintaining confidence during these calls, insisting the problems were temporary and easily fixable. But investors weren't convinced. They'd seen too many companies collapse from similar warning signs. My company's growth was becoming impossible to ignore in industry circles. Articles compared traditional agencies to innovative platforms, and the platforms consistently came out ahead. Investors started wondering if they'd backed the wrong business model. One investor reached out to Raina, asking about my company's funding and growth trajectory. She handled it carefully, confirming strong performance without revealing too much. The conversation planted seeds. Maybe this startup wasn't a flash in the pan. Maybe it represented the future while companies like Halebrand Partners represented the past. Marcus realized his company was hemorrhaging clients faster than he could replace them. His response was to double down on traditional approaches, insisting quality and relationships would win eventually. He didn't understand that the market had fundamentally shifted, and his refusal to adapt was accelerating his company's decline. I watched it all unfold with careful attention, ready for the next strategic move. The board meeting at Halebrand Partners descended into chaos, according to my inside source. Marcus had called it to address the mounting problems, but instead of solutions, he offered blame. He blamed clients for being short-sighted. He blamed his team for not working hard enough. He blamed market conditions and economic uncertainty. He blamed everything except his own leadership failures. Board members pushed back, demanding concrete plans for recovery. Marcus lashed out defensively, his arrogance on full display. "I built this company," he'd shouted. "I know what I'm doing. These problems are temporary." Someone mentioned the startup that was gaining market share rapidly. "Should we be concerned about this new platform?" they asked. Marcus dismissed it with a wave. "It's amateur hour. They'll collapse under their own inexperience. We just need to weather this temporary storm." Employees whispered in hallways after the meeting. Morale plummeted. People started updating their resumes quietly. My former colleague reported that several talented strategists were considering leaving. "The ship is sinking," she said, "and Marcus is too proud to admit it." Meanwhile, my team prepared for our next major product launch. We developed features that would directly compete with Halebrand Partners' core services, but better, faster, and cheaper. The launch was scheduled for the following month. Marcus's world was about to get much worse. And his arrogance continued blinding him to the reality of his situation. Our new product launched on a Monday morning with carefully coordinated marketing. We'd been quiet for months, building in stealth. Now we were ready to make noise. The upgraded platform offered everything traditional agencies provided, enhanced with technology they couldn't match. Real-time collaboration tools, AI-assisted strategy development, transparent pricing with no hidden fees, results-focused metrics that proved value clearly. Media attention was immediate and overwhelming. Business publications called it the future of strategic services. Podcasts wanted interviews. Industry analysts predicted major disruption. I finally agreed to some press, though I kept a relatively low profile. My company's name was everywhere, but I remained somewhat behind the scenes. The product directly undercut Marcus's core business model. Why pay premium rates for the same services available faster and cheaper? His clients started asking that exact question. Within 2 weeks, 3 more major clients defected from Hale brand partners to my platform. Marcus's company tried responding with their own technology initiatives, but they were rushed, poorly executed, and obviously reactive rather than innovative. Their PR team issued statements about commitment to innovation and client service, but the messaging felt desperate and unconvincing. Industry insiders saw through it immediately. Hale brand partners is scrambling, one analyst wrote. They're being outmaneuvered by nimbler competitors who understand the market better. I read that analysis and smiled. The analyst had no idea how personal this was. This wasn't just market competition. This was carefully orchestrated justice, and the final act was approaching rapidly. Raina called me into her office for a private conversation. The real estate company holding Marcus's building is in serious trouble, she said. They're over-leveraged, and with Hale brand partners likely breaking their lease or negotiating down, they're facing potential bankruptcy. She pulled out financial documents showing the full picture. With the right backing, you could acquire the entire property, not just shares, but ownership, complete control. My heart raced. That's a massive investment. You'd need additional funding, she agreed. But I have investors who believe in your vision. They've seen your growth trajectory. They'd back this acquisition if you're interested. I thought about it for exactly 3 seconds. I'm interested. Over the following weeks, Raina assembled the funding. Multiple investors contributed, believing in both my company's future and the strategic value of the real estate acquisition. The property was prime downtown location with multiple tenants. It was a solid investment beyond the symbolic victory. We prepared an acquisition proposal carefully, running it through lawyers and financial advisors. Everything was structured through corporate entities that couldn't be easily traced back to me personally. When we finally submitted the offer, it would appear to come from a nameless investment group. Marcus would have no idea I was behind it. The offer was deliberately lowball, testing their desperation. We expected rejection. But rejection would reveal how serious their financial problems actually were. And that information would shape our next move perfectly. The acquisition proposal went out on a Thursday afternoon. The real estate company's response came back within 24 hours, a polite but firm rejection. The property is not for sale at this time, their lawyer wrote. We're confident in our portfolio's long-term value. Raina smiled when she read it. They're bluffing. That response was written by someone trying to project strength while barely holding things together. We waited patiently, monitoring the situation. 2 weeks passed, then a month. During that time, 2 more clients left Hale brand partners. Industry publications ran articles questioning the company's viability. Marcus's carefully built reputation was crumbling publicly. My former colleague reported increasing desperation inside the company. People are jumping ship, she said, and Marcus is in denial about how bad things actually are. I knew we needed to wait just a little longer. The real estate company was watching Hale brand partners closely, understanding that their flagship tenant was in serious trouble. When that trouble became undeniable, they'd be forced to reconsider. Meanwhile, my company continued thriving. We expanded into new markets, hired additional staff, and opened a second office. Growth was exponential. Everything Marcus had predicted would fail was succeeding spectacularly, and everything he'd built with such arrogance was collapsing under its own weight. Sometimes the best revenge is simply becoming everything they said you couldn't be while they fall exactly as you knew they would. Patience was key. Justice was coming. I just had to wait for the perfect moment. The market shift happened faster than even I anticipated. My company released another major upgrade that made traditional agencies almost obsolete. The features were revolutionary, combining AI assistance with human expertise in ways nobody had achieved before. Clients could get sophisticated strategic insights at a fraction of traditional costs. The response was explosive. Within 1 week, we signed 40 new clients. Within 2 weeks, that number doubled. Industry analysts declared traditional agency models dead. "The future belongs to platforms like this," one prominent analyst wrote. "Companies still operating on old models will either adapt or disappear." Hale Brand Partners fell into the disappear category. Unable to compete on price, technology, or innovation, they hemorrhaged clients at an unsustainable rate. Their stock price, once stable and respectable, tanked dramatically. Investors panicked. Board members demanded Marcus's resignation. The company he'd built with such pride was collapsing spectacularly and publicly. My former colleague sent me a final update before she left the company. "It's over," she wrote. "Marcus knows it. Everyone knows it. They're trying to find buyers for assets, but nobody wants a sinking ship." I read her message sitting in my modern office, surrounded by my thriving team, watching my company's success metrics climb steadily. Everything Marcus had said I couldn't do, I'd done. Everything he'd predicted would fail had succeeded beyond my wildest expectations. And now he was facing the consequences of his arrogance. The final pieces were falling into place perfectly. The call came on a Tuesday morning. My assistant informed me that someone from Hale Brand Partners wanted to speak with our acquisitions team. I took the call personally, though they didn't know who they were speaking with initially. The voice on the other end was desperate, professionally controlled but clearly strained. Marcus Hale himself. "I'm reaching out about potential partnership opportunities," he said, the words obviously difficult for him. Hale Brand Partners is exploring strategic collaborations with emerging platforms. We believe there could be mutual benefits. I almost laughed. He was begging for help without directly admitting he was begging. "What kind of collaboration did you have in mind?" I asked neutrally. He outlined a proposal where his company would handle high-end clients while my platform serviced smaller businesses. A partnership that would stabilize his failing company while giving him access to my technology and client base. "We bring decades of experience and reputation," he said. "You bring innovative technology. Together, we could dominate the market." The audacity was stunning. He still believed his reputation held value. He still thought he had leverage. "I'll need to discuss this with our leadership team," I said calmly. "Someone will be in touch." I hung up and sat in silence for several minutes. Marcus had called me, desperate for help, without even recognizing my voice. The man who'd humiliated me was now begging the company I'd built. The irony was almost too perfect, but I wasn't done yet. There was still one final move to make. The real estate company contacted us 3 days later. Their tone had changed dramatically from the confident rejection months earlier. "We're now open to discussing the property acquisition," their representative said carefully. "Given changing market conditions and portfolio restructuring, we're willing to negotiate." Translation: their flagship tenant was collapsing, and they were desperate. We scheduled a meeting to discuss terms. Raina handled the negotiations masterfully, using their desperation to secure favorable terms while not appearing to exploit them too obviously. The deal took 2 weeks to structure properly. Lawyers reviewed every detail. Financial advisors confirmed the investment made strategic sense beyond just symbolic victory. Throughout negotiations, Marcus had no idea what was happening. He was too focused on trying to save his company, reaching out to potential investors, attempting merger discussions with competitors. All his efforts failed. Nobody wanted to acquire or invest in a company with declining revenue, departing clients, and a reputation for being out of touch with market evolution. Finally, forced by investors and mounting losses, Marcus accepted that Hale Brand Partners needed to drastically restructure. They'd have to break their expensive lease, downsize significantly, possibly declare bankruptcy. The board scheduled a meeting to finalize these decisions. I scheduled our property acquisition closing for the same day. The timing was deliberate and perfect. The meeting would take place in the very glass lobby where Marcus had humiliated me 2 years earlier. Full circle. The day arrived cold and clear. I dressed carefully in a sharp suit, professional but not ostentatious. Raina accompanied me to the building where everything had started. The glass lobby looked exactly the same, though I saw it differently now. This wasn't the place where I'd been humiliated. This was the place where I'd made my vow. We met with the real estate company's representatives in a conference room. Papers were signed methodically, lawyers confirming every detail. When the final signature was placed, the property was officially mine. Well, technically owned by my corporate entity, but controlled by me completely. "Congratulations, Ms. Vale," the real estate representative said. "You now own one of the premier commercial properties downtown." I smiled. "Thank you. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have another meeting." I walked down to the glass lobby, where Marcus was scheduled to meet with his board in 30 minutes. I wanted to be there when he arrived. I didn't have to wait long. He walked in carrying a briefcase, his shoulders slumped in a way I'd never seen before. He looked older, defeated, diminished. He saw me standing there and stopped abruptly. For a moment, he didn't recognize me. Then his eyes widened. "Leora," he said, confusion clear in his voice. I smiled calmly. "Hello, Marcus. Welcome to my building." The confusion deepened. "Your building?" "I just finalized the acquisition," I explained. "I now own this property, all of it." Understanding dawned slowly, followed by shock, then something close to horror. Marcus struggled to process what I just told him. His mouth opened and closed several times before words finally emerged. "You own this building," he repeated slowly. "Yes," I confirmed. "The company you mocked 2 years ago in this exact lobby just bought the property housing your failing firm." Other board members started arriving, noticing our conversation and looking confused. Marcus seemed frozen, unable to respond. I didn't gloat or insult him. That wasn't necessary. The situation spoke for itself clearly enough. "You told me people like me don't build companies," I said calmly. "You said I'd be back begging for my job within 6 months. You laughed at my dreams and dismissed my potential." He looked down, unable to meet my eyes. "I was wrong," he whispered. "Yes, you were," I agreed. "But here's what you didn't understand. When you dismissed me, you didn't break me, you freed me. You pushed me to build something better than anything I could have created while working for you." I gestured around the lobby. "This building represents more than just property acquisition. It represents what happens when talented people stop accepting other people's limitations." His board members had gathered now, listening to our conversation with obvious interest. "Hale Brand Partners will need to vacate this space," I continued. "Your lease terms allow for owner-initiated termination with 90 days' notice. I'll be providing that notice today." Marcus looked devastated. "Leora, please." "This isn't personal anymore," I interrupted gently. "It's just business. The same business principles you taught me, actually. Adapt or disappear. You chose not to adapt." I turned to leave, then stopped. "Good luck with your restructuring, Marcus. I genuinely hope you learn from this." The news broke within hours. "Startup founder acquires building housing failed agency," read the headlines. Business publications rushed to cover the story, recognizing the poetic justice immediately. "Leora Vale, founder of the platform Disrupting Traditional Agencies, has acquired the downtown property housing Hale Brand Partners, the company she left 2 years ago to start her business," one article explained. The story went viral. Social media exploded with commentary about karma, underdog victories, and the importance of recognizing talent. People shared their own stories of being dismissed by employers who later regretted it. My company's profile skyrocketed further. The publicity was overwhelming, but mostly positive. Hale Brand Partners officially announced bankruptcy proceedings the following week. Investors pulled remaining support. Clients scattered to competitors, many choosing my platform. Marcus's reputation, once built on decades of success, was destroyed. He became a cautionary tale about arrogance and failure to adapt. Industry conferences used him as an example of everything wrong with traditional business thinking. I didn't participate in the public mockery. When journalists asked for comments about Marcus specifically, I declined. "I'm focused on building my company and serving clients," I'd say. "The past is the past." But privately, the victory was sweet. Everything he'd said I couldn't achieve, I'd achieved. Everything he'd predicted would fail had succeeded spectacularly. And the building where he'd humiliated me was now mine. Justice had been served completely and publicly. My rise was complete. His fall was total. And it had all happened through legitimate business success, not sabotage or cruelty, just competence, innovation, and refusing to accept his limitations. Despite the public victory and business success, I found myself back in my apartment one evening feeling unexpectedly quiet. The celebration had been external and loud, but internally I felt something more complex than simple triumph. I sat on my couch looking at photos from the past 2 years, the tiny cafe where I'd met Raina, the cramped first office, my team's faces during late-night work sessions. The journey had been about more than revenge. It had been about becoming someone I respected, building something valuable, proving to myself that I was capable of everything Marcus said I wasn't. The satisfaction I felt wasn't about his failure. It was about my success standing independently, regardless of his opinion or approval. My phone buzzed with a notification, an invitation to keynote an international business conference. Your story of entrepreneurial resilience and innovation would inspire our audience, the invitation read. I accepted immediately. This wasn't about Marcus anymore. It was about sharing lessons learned, encouraging other dismissed employees to trust their vision, showing that established authorities aren't always right about who deserves success. I thought about the younger version of myself, standing in that glass lobby being mocked, believing for a moment that maybe Marcus was right about my limitations. I wished I could tell her everything would work out, that the humiliation would become fuel, that the dismissal would become liberation, that she'd not just survive but thrive in ways nobody expected, including herself. Standing on the conference stage 3 months later felt surreal. The auditorium held hundreds of entrepreneurs, innovators, and business leaders from across the country. I looked out at their faces, seeing excitement and curiosity. 2 years ago, someone told me I'd never be successful, I began. He said people like me don't build companies, we work for people who do. That statement was meant to keep me in my place, to accept limitations others defined for me. I paused, letting the words settle. But here's what I learned. Sometimes the regret people warn you about isn't yours to fear, it's theirs to live with. I shared my story honestly. The struggles, the failures, the moments of doubt, the decision to keep building despite mockery. The patience to let success speak louder than any defense. Success isn't about proving others wrong, I continued. It's about proving yourself right. It's about building something valuable regardless of who believes in you initially. The audience listened intently. I saw people nodding, relating to experiences of dismissal and underestimation. The person who mocked me in a corporate lobby now watches from wherever he is as I speak at conferences, run a thriving company, and own the building where his company used to operate. That's not revenge. That's consequence. Natural consequence of underestimating talented people and refusing to evolve. I concluded with advice for anyone facing similar dismissal. Build anyway. Create anyway. Prove yourself to yourself first. External validation follows internal certainty. The applause was thunderous. Backstage, I checked my phone. Someone had sent me a video clip. Marcus watching my keynote on a live stream. His expression was complicated. Regret, recognition, resignation. He finally understood the full measure of what he'd lost. Not just a talented employee, not just market dominance, but the chance to be part of something innovative instead of being left behind by it. My phone buzzed again. A message from Raina. Proud of you. You've come so far. I smiled, replying simply, we're just getting started. Because this wasn't an ending. It was a beginning. The beginning of a company that valued talent wherever it appeared, that embraced innovation over tradition, that proved dismissed employees often become tomorrow's industry leaders. Marcus had given me a gift, though he'd never meant to. He'd freed me from seeking approval from people who couldn't recognize potential. He'd pushed me to build something better than anything I could have created in his shadow. And for that, in a strange way, I was almost grateful. Almost. The story would be told and retold in business schools and entrepreneurial circles. The woman who bought her former employer's building became shorthand for karmic justice and the danger of underestimating talent. But for me, it was simpler. It was the story of deciding my worth wasn't determined by someone else's limited vision. And that made all the difference.